Chaos Reign Classics. As you know, this is just another good one. Nice little discussion, interview, or podcast. So, like always, get the uncut version of this video. Follow me on Rumble. CRain23. The link to Rumble for this broadcast will be in the description. So, like always, Chaos Reign. The Chaos Reign. Chaos Reign presents Mental Illness from a Woman's Perspective with guest Topaz. Broadcast August the 23rd, 2020. Enjoy. In a world where there's crime, corruption, violence, theft, and all forms of atrocities that plague the world in which we live in today, what you're witnessing, we are living in a state of chaos. And it'll take a greater, much extremer chaos to restore the order in which the world we live in today. Good evening, black people. This is Chaos here. Get here. And tonight, this is, I would say, I have not declared yet, but this is somewhat of a series in regards to dealing with the issues amongst people in the community, especially black community, in regards to mental health. No further ado, we will get on to the subject nonetheless. The subject tonight, Chaos Reign presents mental illness from a woman's perspective. And no further ado, the guest for tonight's show I have on is one and only Miss Topaz. So Miss Topaz, I see you there on the board. As I open you up, welcome to Talk Real Solutions for the very first time. How are you doing, Topaz? Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clear, loud and clear.
Okay, I want to apologize because I lost my voice earlier this week, so I've been drinking tea trying to get it back to come back. So if you can't hear me or can't understand me, just, let me know.
Don't worry, we work through it nonetheless. Just take your time. We ain't no rush, you know what I'm saying? We have all the time in the world. But welcome, Topaz, to Talk Real Solutions, the very first time. As you know, I came across you through YouTube now, I think almost a year now, I believe, maybe.
Yeah.
I
started last year in August.
Oh, good. Oh, so it's been almost a year, over a year now.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, like a year and a couple of days, I think.
All right, good. Well, before we go into the subject matter, I like to, like all guests that come on the first time on Talk Real Solutions, I like to take a step back in time before we step into the present. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself for the call listening for the first time.
Okay, well, so in my real life, I am a licensed professional counselor and supervisor of interns. I have a practice where I am doing both chronic mental illness with people who are 40 years old and older in a day program. They go there every single day in order to get intensive treatment. And then I also see individual clients for either assessments, for adjustment, or either daily, what we like to call the worried well, people who are living their normal life, but then there's something that happens that they need to talk with someone to process through. So outpatient private practice.
And
I also started a YouTube channel, and it's called Topaz Presents Neo-Nubian Nuances, and so it's about Black mental health. Basically, the things that we need to be aware of for ourselves, interacting with one another, and raising our children. And I am actually in America, so therefore, it's going to have a undertone of what Black people deal with daily here in the United States of America.
Okay. And you originally from the Midwest, the East Coast, down south? Where are you originally from?
I'm from the South. I'm from Houston, Texas.
Okay, that's what's up. A person from the big state of Texas. Everything's big in Texas, including food. Man.
Yes, it is, and it's a lot of political stuff happening here. So it's a culture in and of its own. Texas is the only state that was actually its own republic before being, I guess, like, connected into the United States. So there's still that belief system. There's still that undertone with everyday occurrences. Everybody that you talk to, that's kind of a running theme here.
I see. And I think it's a big red state, because blue is Democrat and red is Republican. So, yeah, it's a big Republican state.
Right.
I think
the state of Texas itself is a red state, meaning it's Republican-led for the most of our, for the recent past, probably for the near future. But there are certain cities within Texas that are very blue and Democratic-led. So you get a nice mix.
I see. Excellent. All right. Since we know a little bit more about your background story, let's go into the subject. Mental illness. As you know, I never did share you my other broadcast with another wonderful brother from Minnesota called Brendan Jones. He's also in the field of mental health, I believe, psychologist by major. Me and him talk about mental health from a different perspective. This is like a month and a half ago, maybe two. But tonight's a little bit different because you're in that same clinical field. What are your views in regards to just mental health in its entirety when it comes to Black people, men and women?
Well, first, I just want to say that I do understand why the following sentence is true. And so we as a culture don't really trust authority, and we don't trust the medical field, and there is good reason for it. It's not a delusion. These are events that literally happened and were planned and carried out against Black culture. So with that being said, I will say that the field of psychology, another thing that comes from Black culture is the belief that, know that we can pray things away, that we just need to be strong and tough it out. So there is the belief that mental illness or the need for any emotional or mental support is seen as weakness. So that's something that has harmed our community because we're expecting ourselves to be less human. We're perpetuating the damage that was done by treating us less than human. And now we're requiring ourselves to keep that going. We're measuring ourselves based on our ability to fit into something that is not necessarily helpful for us as human beings. The field of psychology as it stands today could use a lot more providers of color, especially Black providers. And I will say that they are making attempts and strides in understanding our needs specifically and how they differ from other cultures. But it's not going to work unless more Black people stand up and have their voices heard. So when we're experiencing something, we need to take it seriously, and then we need to present that so that we can get what we need in terms of mental and emotional stability.
Okay. Topaz, the few patients that you start to help in regards to their journey of healing mentally.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how long you've been doing this now, but the time that you've been doing
in my career, I've been doing it for 18 years.
Oh wow. Okay. All right, then you have a lot of stories. Okay. Damn, where to start?
Yeah.
What is the one major correlation that you find to the amount of pay? We're gonna start with the women first, then men. They find the issues with the women that, let's say, come to you for mental health issues. What's the thing that you find that is common in regards to African American women or ADOS women?
Well, it's kind of a tie between a few things, but the overall theme is that the emotional states that they're expressing aren't necessarily, when you get underneath why certain behaviors are occurring, when you get underneath why they're reporting certain symptoms, when you get underneath that and you find the true core cause, a lot of black women are showing up to mental health offices, and the underlying tone is anxiety. That's not something that we talk about a lot. That's something that we definitely cover up. And so when you do that for long enough, the symptoms will come out and they will present as another concern, namely anger. Because anger is the emotion that we're allowing ourselves to feel. But there are other core emotions underneath the anger that unless you get to that, you won't ever be able to treat, and the anger is going to persist. So that's been my experience in terms of who comes into my office.
Anger, emotion. You never, when they sit there and like they tell their story, the anger that they face, is it some of just everyday life or something that they gone through their development as young teenagers going to adults?
Well, we do have a lot of abuse in the black community, and we don't like to actually refer to it as abuse. But, I'm sure you could look up the statistics and everything, but a lot of black women have suffered various types of abuse and or neglect growing up. And so when you are a child, there's a measurement called adverse childhood events. And so the higher the number of these things that happen in your childhood, the earlier that they happen to you, the worse off it's going to be when you try to become a well-rounded, mentally stable, full-functioning adult. So there's a literal correlation between the number of events and the earliest time that they began and your ability to become an adult that can, run and manage a society. So that is underneath a lot of the issues that black women present when they come into my office. And so sometimes there's anger about that is valid. That is accurate anger, but much more often I see anxiety regarding repeating those behaviors or repeating those patterns. But if you haven't learned how to A, label it as the abuse that it actually was, and B, work towards not perpetuating it going forward, then you're going to repeat it, and then there's the feelings of hopelessness. So we have a lot of generational things that have been passed down as the appropriate way to rear children, and that's not true. We have lots of information now that can tell us what some of the behaviors that we believe to be good parenting in the past actually do to the human psyche. Underneath it all, black people, we have to realize that we're human beings. We have to treat ourselves that way. And there are certain things that are unique to the human experience. If we ignore that or we do things contrary to that, we're always going to get the same result.
Okay, interesting. All right, the call number for tonight's show is 712-770-4160. The access code 915-411#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. The access code 915-411#. Tonight, some show, Chaos Rain presents Mental Illness from a Woman's Perspective with my guest, Topaz. Now, in regards to the black male, what is common that you find if the Eric comes in regards to therapy, psychology to you, and your that you notice correlation with, in regards to the males?
Okay, well, in terms of my specific practice, when men come into my office, it's usually anger. When black men come into my office, it's a lot of anger. And so underneath the core of that anger, there's usually a lot of sadness and depression. But it's the same thing. That is something that black men have been taught that is not masculine, that is not a useful emotion. We're taught that people will use your emotions against you. And does that happen? Yes. So that's yet another behavior that we as a culture have to stop doing. So men come into my office, they are expressing anger because that's a safer emotion. That's a more acceptable emotion to express. But it's usually in excess of an appropriate response to what's actually happening. It gets them in trouble at work. It gets them in, it ruins relationships. And so when you look underneath that, there's a lot of sadness and there's a lot of grief and loss that black men don't talk about.
Okay. I think with the black males, because there's not enough circles besides, with the homeboys, that they express their frustration of the world they live in, where they work in, relationships, etc. There's not really an actual center for black men to actually vent properly, especially if some of them, if depending how well they trust you with their private information, there's also even sometimes molestation, or what they call rape, with a few of them too, that they
black men experience a lot of abuse in their childhood as well. And it's even worse for them because black men are also, at the same time that they're experiencing this abuse, they're being taught that they should, no matter how young they are, be able to prevent it. Black men in America are treated as adults. They're being given adult responsibility before they're physically and mentally capable of handling and mastering a responsibility of that magnitude. They're being set up for failure. So that's where the depression comes from, is the realization that things are not being set up in a way that can help them achieve success. Basically, things are not being done fairly for them.
Well, there's reasons for that, Topaz, because men are, the front line, the last line of defense before you get to the women and children. If you got control of the male population, you're going to get abused. I don't care what any woman said about if they getting protection or not.
Right.
At the end of the day, if they're going at the male population, regardless said men should fight, I agree. But if you're conditioned to not know what warfare is, your place as a young boy becoming a man, you're going to be going into battlefield blind. It's just not more to this, I'm a boy, I'm black, I'm a male. No, it's more that. It's a serious experience. You go out in an environment, you're going to be targeted by other groups of men. Law enforcement. Hell, men that's in so-called gangs to get you in, caught up, or just some other crap that's going to put these young boys in very vulnerable positions to make a decision. A very much decision that could either put them behind bars or put them 6 feet under. It's one or the other. And it's funny I'm talking about this, Topaz, because a lot of people feel that when it comes to us as people that we have to put the blame game, who's more valuable, who's more important. I look at it that if your boys are not prepared enough to handle this environment, regardless if you give them the right tools, they're going to be eaten by the wolves out here in the streets.
And to answer that, about the thing about who's more important, that is not even a realistic or mature question to ask. The reason for that is because both people are needed. What difference does it make who's more important? That's an ego contest. You need both of them, and they have different and distinct jobs to do. So to me, that is something that indicates that we as black people, as a culture, we don't really operate in adulthood. We're adults, we get a job, but then it's like your leisure time, you might do things that are not helpful to you or your future. And that's acceptable. And nobody is supposed to say anything to you about that. But that question about which gender is more important is indicative of the fact that we're not using our adulthood to be able to do things that can better our place here.
Yeah, I agree. I think with me, because I only could speak from a male's perspective, but like I said, it's ego when it comes to the sexes. You get me? I mean, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. Well, some podcasts, not many. Some things on video, YouTube, etc. And I hear the outcry from the women in our community to a degree. But as a man, I don't really have too much emotions to that, because as a man, we go through this journey differently, And to sit there, go through an ego, like you said, like most of us in this community, it doesn't really help us, I have even harsh criticism in regards how these boys are going to be developed. I think I had a conversation with Professor X. I think his name is Prophet of Thought, other brothers, and we always talk about the mindset of these boys that become adults, and the men that either they step up to be fathers and fight to one or two things, either co-parent or take full custody of the boys. But I hear it, and mind you, I can't say it's an excuse, because most men don't try because they are bred to fear the system.
Absolutely. I was just getting ready to say that. A lot of black men would enjoy raising their son. I mean, what man doesn't want a smaller version of him, right? So a lot of men would be excited to raise their son. However, they feel like it's a wasted cause because the system has been rigged against them. This is not a delusional thought process. That black men and, black women, black culture overall has had a negative experience when dealing with the justice system here. So, but the thing is, what happened to the motivation to fight to change something? Anger can be useful when it's used to make a change. And every change that's ever happened started with someone being unhappy, started with somebody getting angry, but what happened was they got the motivation to not only dream of something different, but feel like they can achieve it and then go after it. You have to have drive, determination. You have to have, persistence. And these are all the qualities that, if you think about it, have been punished in black men. They literally, get that out of black boys before they become adults. What type of black man is rewarded with, high value status? The type of man that does not show those qualities unless it is to keep the current system going. Any man that's a free thinker is not rewarded with that type of support and respect for those characteristics. It's done by design. So they're not delusional when they have that thought process. But after all of that I just said, the answer is to find the motivation and keep going. How would black boys find the motivation and then be able to change something different for themselves and their children and future generations of black men? Being mentored by the black men who were able to fight against the system and didn't get caught up in it. But those are the men that feel like they're being required to do something extra. And yes, they are, because you have endured something extra. It's, it's something that if you want a better place in the world as it stands, you're going to have some sacrifice. Right now, intensive right now, and then you get to rest later on.
Do you feel, and this will apply for, well, I'll keep it balanced for both. Do you feel us as a people, men and women, do we feel we sacrifice enough for our children? Whether the boys or girls, especially the boys. 'Cause I think the boys have a little hard
No,
side
I
to the girls.
don't believe black parents sacrifice, and I'm using black parents, black men and black women. I don't believe
Yeah, that's
black parents sacrifice enough for their children because they also feel like they didn't get enough sacrifice done for them when they were children, and it just perpetuates and it keeps going.
mhm. Mm.
This is what a healthy parenting situation would look like, would be you having made the choice to become a parent, and you, part of the joy of giving birth to your child and having the opportunity to be a parent, to participate and have a say-so in the next generation that's being born. That's what the
Mhm.
reward is. Anything above that, like believing that when your kids are adults that they owe you a house or that they owe you something, that is childish and is extra. That is not healthy parenting. And
Mm.
so I believe that our culture believes that you owe your parents blind loyalty. That's not logical. And it also goes against what you as a human is going to do when you become an adult anyway. The thing about the age is 18 to 25. There's an internal conflict that has to be resolved before you can be a successful adult that's leading into your 30s. We all have these goals and timelines,
Okay.
right? Well, for you to
Okay.
be able to, the first thing you need to do is to resolve the internal conflicts from the ages of 18 to 25, which is generation versus individuation. That means how much of your childhood do you keep? Generation, meaning you keep it going, versus individuation. How much of it do you come up with on your own? You're going to
Okay.
separate from your parents. You're going to find your own spouse. You're going to make your own kids and have your own value system. Is it 100% all of what you grew up with? No. It's not logical for that to even happen because things have changed in the world and you're going to have to adapt. But a lot of black
Okay.
parents require their kids to be 100% their junior, and that's not logical. That's keeping your kids trapped, and it's keeping the status quo. So if you are unhappy with the state of black America right now, you're preventing it if you are not letting your children become partially individualized.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
also not healthy for you to throw away everything that you grew up with and be 100% on the side of individuation. The most healthy thing is a mix and a balance of both, because the world hasn't completely changed and done a 180 since you were a child. It changed a little bit because things are
Mhm.
gradual. So you match
Mhm.
that ratio, and that's how you are able to see the most success in your adulthood. That's how you adapt new value systems going forward.
Hmm.
So that would be
Hmm.
an unhealthy reaction in the child. So, I really feel like our parenting needs an overhaul.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. I think with parenting now moving forward in the 21st century has to be really redesigned in a way how we can get the best out of our children, the future down for our survival in this 21st century moving forward, because
Right.
other groups already have plans what they want to see the world to be shaped within the end of this century, and they already views that they don't
Absolutely.
want to see much black people in it. Not saying they don't want all of us gone, because that's not possible. It's ludicrous if they're not that stupid. But like I said, let's say if that happens, then obviously we know
Right.
where human civilization will end once we're gone completely. So one thing they want to do is to what they call monitor and keep a certain surplus of melanated people on the earth. I've been saying this enough times, Topaz, if you're not familiar, that I watched the progression
Okay.
of growth of people,
Right.
populations, and when I did a little Google about how much people or the growth of population, I've noticed it start to decline within this decade now. And I always think, say, what are they doing now to really start cause a steady decline? Well, what we see forth right now, we could have a glimpse of what possibly might come. We're not gonna speculate, but we're not gonna go into detail. But
Mhm.
it shows that where are black people in the equation of all this? You know what I'm saying? Because there are a lot of us here in the world. There's a good portion of us in South America. There are some of us in the Caribbean, and there's the majority of us
Mhm.
in Africa. So within 50 to 70 years, things could change very quickly if you're not careful as race people.
Right.
You know? But like I said, most of us don't have...
it takes to raise a generation.
Yes. And on the average, if you look at America, we have like over maybe 42, 43 generations. Right. Since 1600 till now. So we look at now how our progression is shaping not only our thinking, but how we develop over the centuries here in this country. You know, even to the point where we are now, we're quote unquote liberal, because we could now walk around also after civil rights. That now you find black people in America have now gone through a stagnation, a crossfire, to what is next, you know, as a race in America.
Now, that stagnation, I think, is rooted in the fact that we still hold a lot of the same views. Our value system haven't changed. The biggest one, since we were just talking about parenting, we don't view black children as blessings. We don't view them as assets. And to any society, children are an asset. Do they come with responsibility? Yes, but that does not make them a burden. I think it's a very childish thought process to say that children are a burden, because how else do you achieve a legacy? How else do you achieve immortality? So you know, if you don't have children, you die out. And you die out sooner, because if there are no children, then who is now the adult when you need someone to take care of you? But that's not something that we value until it happens. That's not something that black people also have a tendency to wait to the last minute and throw something together. There was a time in black history that started in America. There was a time where that was something that helped us with survival. We no longer have to do that. We are allowed to have assembly. We are allowed to think, but we're choosing not to in favor of a lot more leisure time activity. That's not setting a good precedent for our children. That's not modeling helpful behavior. And so a lot of parents, in my opinion, have given up. They are no longer attempting to talk to the younger generation. And I mean have a discussion, not talk at them, not talk, around them. Because why? Because their belief is that information is power. If they know that, who are they holding the power over? The children. They're not attempting to gain power through information from those who are withholding it from us. So if you think about some of the things that adults say about children. They're going to need me. They don't know everything. Well, yeah, but that's the point. You're supposed to be teaching and guiding. That's the whole point. But we don't do that. So we still hold some of these same value systems, and it plays out in how we interact with one another. We don't feel happy when there's a group of black people gathering. We automatically assume that something negative is going to happen. There are other people that feel like when there's a group of black people, that's their cue to create and evoke something negative that happens. So we're still not treating one another as valuable. That goes for age lines. That goes for gender lines. That goes for financial, socioeconomic status lines. Any division that you can think about, we're still doing that. And until black people can realize that in a functioning society, you need various things. You need one of a little bit of everything, and then you just use it appropriately, and you respect the existence of all of them. That's coexistence. That's what our purpose here on this planet is supposed to be. And until we get that, we aren't going to have any success. Now, that is, of course, my theory, based on what I see, based on who comes into my office, who's having the hardest time to adjust to life changes, based on who has the power and influence and control right now.
Okay. Just a reminder for everybody that if y'all guys have a question, y'all free to call in. The number to call in is 712-770-4160. The access code is 915-411#. I repeat, 712-770-4160. Access code 915-411#. Tonight's subject: Chaos Rain presents mental illness from a female perspective with my guest Topaz. Um, let me think. Oh, Topaz, what I would say scholars, if any, inspire you to get into this clinical field?
Well, to be honest with you, scholars didn't inspire me to get into this field. So I actually got into this field on a whim. I literally was going to college to be a pediatrician, and then I needed an elective, and Psychology 101 was the only elective that fit the rest of my schedule. So I took the class, I fell in love. Physics kind of stopped the whole doctor thing, but then I felt like this was also a career that I could grow to love. And so that's how I got into the field.
And I was wondering if the understanding, like the famous psychologists like Freud or those other weirdos, inspire you to look into the mind of people more.
Now, okay, so
Freud.
I will say, though, I think I understand what you're getting at now. So I will say, though, like when I did enroll in my initial psychology classes, I read a lot about Freud because we do have to understand him. There are some people that feel like he was just misunderstood and he had a good point. And then I was on the side of psychologists that feel like, I understand why he would say that, but I'm so grateful to modern technology and science advances since his time as a psychologist, because I do feel like he reduced a lot of things down to basically he reduced things down that didn't need to be reduced. So I don't really follow Freud, but I do feel like the initial points that he has to make, I can't go all the way with him. I stopped somewhere about a quarter of the way into his theory. So I don't buy into all of that. I didn't prepare the speech for all of my theoretical orientation because I thought we were going to have like questions. But if we need to, I can. I will say I do follow some of the family systems therapists. I do use a lot of birth order psychology. Let's see. And then a lot of the additional techniques that I use that are much more modern, like cognitive behavioral and dialectical behavioral. So I do have a big background in behavior analysis, and that would be the field where you hear Skinner and Pavlov and people who did the experiments to find the basis of the functions of human behavior. So I pull a lot from that.
Okay, good. I think somebody raised their hand. I'm gonna open it up a little bit because my phone just dropped. So let me open and see who's on the line.
Please join the Chaos Rain Show. As you can tell, you see the amount of nice badge and custom emojis. Ooh. So as you can tell, join the Chaos Rain Show. As you know, there are some perks. As you know, there are 2 tiers of membership. Membership 1, $2.99. As you know, the first membership, as it tells from the description, exclusive members only videos, and also some videos that will be only depending on the situation will be put on members. Not every video will be members only, but the ones that are members only or custom members only videos, you'll see mostly on the first tier. Stage 1, called Ed to the Chaos, stage 1. Now, the other one, the $7.99 one. As you know, there's early access to new videos, member shoutouts, photos and status updates. Maybe I had to edit. I might not put no photos, maybe updates. I might. We'll see, depending on how many people join the top tier one. And like always, exclusive members and members only live streams. And personally, I as this builds up, I might do the live streams members only here more, mostly, roughly, than what's given here. But we have videos, so depending what is I could put on here, it post mostly will be on the first tier. The second tier, depending how much is built up, there might be more exclusive live streams. Might be a little raw cut, uncut stuff, maybe on the members only True Chaos uncut version, which it speaks for itself. And another thing, if y'all did not know, there's a way why I priced the two memberships the way they are. If you could really understand the subliminal numbering of why I choose the first tier $2.99 and the other one $7.99, I'll say this. I doubt people's gonna figure it out, but let's say for the sake of conversation, they come across why I came up with these pricings. I might give you a maybe exclusive, maybe a shadow, or maybe more. Who knows? Maybe something special. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? So, contemplate why I priced my channel the way it is. There's a certain codified code I use the numbers for a reason. I can't give you more detail than what I just gave you now. So I want you to think deeply on that when you catch the replay of this video. So those are membership.